Beth Slifer, Vail Village resident and owner of Slifer Designs since 1984, is well known for combining her passion for interior design and business acumen to help turn Vail's indoors from rustic decor to resort beauty. Slifer Designs has completed more than 1,000 residential and commercial projects, largely throughout the Rocky Mountain West, and employs over 100 people today. Prior to moving to Vail, Beth worked for President Carter as an advisor for his presidential campaign. She also developed a dear friendship in Vail with General Ford and Betty Ford. Betty Ford became one of her biggest female influencers. Beth is in the process of restructuring Slifer Designs and plans to spend more time with Rodney, her husband of 37 years, but says she looks forward to continuing to spend time working on the look and leadership of Vail. Beth partners with the Vail Symposium and the Vail Valley Partnership on subjects of women entrepreneurs and continues her scholarship work for the local high school graduates. She's also involved in a number of local and state organizations. She was a founding board member of the Helen and Arthur E. Johnson Depression Center at the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus, a founding board member for Roundup River Ranch, a board member of the University of Colorado Hospital, a board member for the Vail Valley Partnership. Beth is long admired as a professional leader for her community leadership and philanthropic endeavors. Beth is the female impact. I believe one of the most powerful gifts you can share is your story. Sharing your story to be a beacon of light for others, empower change, and connect to the bigger world around you. This is how we heal. Everyone has a story worth sharing. These are the beautiful stories inspired by badass women and their lasting legacy. This is the Female Impact. Hi, welcome to the Female Impact. I am Liz Logan, and today I am very, very honored to be among one of the most admirable and successful women in Vail, Beth Slifer. Welcome. I'm so happy you're here and that we get to do this.
Well, thank you, Liz. That's very flattering, and I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, you have been, talk about using your superpowers and your full strength to catapult yourself in this world. I feel like you've done so much and have influenced not just this valley, but the world. You're all over the place with your design. And tell me a little bit about how you started out with knowing this was going to be your career path. Did you always know that?
No, I didn't know it at all. My mother was an interior designer of some note in northern Florida, and I deliberately did not want to follow her path. And I had a multifaceted career, many careers, as so many women my age.
Yeah.
Just go from one opportunity to another, never with a plan. In my generation, that was not very usual to have a plan.
Right.
But when I married Rod and moved to Vail, I was still working as a consultant to the company I was doing marketing for in Chicago.
Okay.
And first of all, I got really tired of commuting out of Vail. As soon as I got here, I realized, ooh, this is a bad idea.
Yeah.
And then secondly, I brought with me all the furniture that I'd had in my apartment in Chicago. And we lived in Potato Patch Club, and people liked it. But that was mainly because it was real furniture. Uh-huh. It wasn't ski camp furniture.
Right.
And so friends...
That's well said, actually.
So friends started asking me to help them do something. And one friend who worked in real estate was desperate to sell actually the penthouse at the Lodge at Vail for a client who was a Texan, and it was in the early 80s during serious recession for the energy industry, and he really needed to get out of that penthouse. And it had been on the market for a year. And so this friend said, can't you come fluff up this condo so it looks better? It really doesn't look as good as where you and Ron are living.
Right.
So I said, well, sure, I'll try. I went and looked, and I said, oh my gosh, how much money can he spend to make this look better? And the realtor came back and he said he has $17,000 in cash that he can give you to change a 3 or 4 bedroom penthouse.
It's a good challenge.
Well, I don't know if we can stretch that very far, but we can certainly make the living area look great. So I called my mother, was able to use her accounts with all of the places that sell furniture and accessories and lamps and fabrics. And she talked me through that. I went to Denver, I went to the design center, and I bought as much as I could with $17,000, put it in the unit, and a quirk of fate, luck, happenstance, the condo sold in 1 week.
Oh my gosh.
So all of a sudden, the real estate community thought I was magic. It was just a wonderful coincidence that it all happened at the same time. But from then on, I moved into the basement of Rod's office on Bridge Street and started doing pretty small jobs, really trying to transform these properties that really looked like ski camp. Rugged, lots of lodgepole furniture,
heavy wood, and,
lots of orange and dark brown.
Yeah,
and
that was pretty much the color choice back then.
That was it.
Yeah.
That was it. And shag carpet that was either orange or dark brown.
Yeah,
and you know, often 4, double bunks squeezed into small bedrooms. It was just a place to sleep and go out on the mountain.
Right. How many people can you slam into a room?
But as people started to realize the real estate value of their properties here, they were more willing to invest in them and make them places that were gathering places beyond just ski camp.
Yeah.
And they gradually became year-round, or at least summer as well as winter.
Yeah.
And the demand increased over time, and as Vail growth moved west, excuse me,
no worries.
It was just really obvious that people wanted a more refined, a more comfortable, and a more beautiful place that would attract and be a magnet for their family and friends.
Right. That felt good. To be inside.
Design, that is absolutely the right word. It's all about how do you feel when you walk in your front door or in your friend's front door. Does it lift you up or does it kind of depress you?
I always say that a home is a reflection of your soul. You know, that when you walk into a space, you can tell instantly how someone is presenting in their life. If they're stuck, usually there's a lot of extra stuff gathered, and and if they're just living their light, it's like they've either hired someone fantastic and have avoided all of that, or they really have stepped into that. But I think designing of a home it really truly is a reflection of how you're moving through the world.
Well, I agree, and I think when you come home from a day of work or a day of carpooling or whatever your life is about, it's so important that you feel better than you felt when you were in the car.
No question. And actually, let's just make sure that's really, for those of you that are watching, that is a beautiful takeaway point, because if you come home and you feel like it's more work, or there's stuff to be done, or you're constantly picking stuff up, or there's stuff everywhere. No matter how many children you have, or how big the home is, or small the home is, you can make it functional for your life so that when you do come home, it's like this warm embrace, right? That you just get to sink in. And then the bedroom, I always talk about in my lifestyle coaching, I always talk about what a bedroom should look like, because we're in this chaotic state where we've got electronics right here connected, and it doesn't feel good to go to bed. It feels like, okay, I'm just gonna lay in this mattress. But what you've really designed and done with your life is given us a blueprint of how to feel incredible. The spaces that you create, they're magical. They're incredible spaces. Well, they really are.
Well, thank you. And hopefully they're a reflection of the client.
Yeah.
And we always try to deliver their vision, but make their vision a little better, because not many people have that that creative talent.
And the capacity to dream that big. You know,
Well, that's true too.
That's a big thing that in my coaching, certainly I'm pushing people to step into a bigger dream for their life. That's what you're doing from a home design standpoint.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So step back for a second. I forget what year did you and Rod come to Vail?
Well, Rod was here May 1st before Vail Mountain opened in 1962. We met 15 years after that, and we had both been married and divorced, unhappy marriages, reluctant to start any relationships.
Yep.
But we had a blind date, and I was living in Washington, D.C. I was working in President Jimmy Carter's administration, and he was back in Washington to testify before Congress about something to do with bonding for Pipkin Creek for employee housing. He was mayor at the time, and he was going to be there for a week.
He was mayor of Vail at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we had a mutual friend, a woman I had known most of my life, even in college, and then her husband had been a very important player in Carter's campaign and administration. And she had been a ski bum in Vail. And Rodney had always thought she was the loveliest, coolest woman he knew. He called her and was really hoping she had a twin sister, or maybe that her marriage wasn't so good. I don't know.
I love it.
But she called me, and I had been divorced 1 month. And she said, "Beth, I think this might be too soon for you to be interested, but I really think this is somebody that you need to meet and you need to know." And I said, "Really? I'm going away for the weekend. I won't be back on Saturday." And she said, "Oh, that's fine. He'll be here for a week. You can go out on Sunday. Just get on the train or the plane and get back here Sunday night." So I said, "Oh, okay." I did that. And we had a few phone conversations, and because he was the first assistant ski school director, I had this vision of this sort of Nordic guy. And he had this wonderful phone voice. He really has a great speaking voice. And I had envisioned this big, tall, hunky blonde. And when he knocked on my door in Washington, and I looked through the peephole, I saw this regular-looking guy with a cowboy hat on, and I thought, "No, you're kidding. A cowboy hat in Washington, D.C.?
Rod is a very handsome man. He's a very handsome man, but it is funny what we do in our minds, right?
I thought, well, I have to open the door, and so he came in. He had on cowboy boots, and I thought, really? This is in 1978. That was before it was she to wear cowboy clothes in New York City.
Right. It was really the Wild Wild West outfit, right?
This was really authentic.
Yeah.
And actually, that's one of my favorite things about Rod. He is authentic.
Yep.
He is who he is. He is who he's always been.
Yep.
And he is the same to everyone.
Yeah, which is a beautiful gift.
It is a gift.
You guys came to Vail.
I came to Vail 5 years later.
But colliding lives with this man, I mean, really, you look at couples, and sometimes, you know, one is more developed in their profession than another, but you guys came together and pretty much created this power couple from the standpoint of using your genius, using your talents. Really, again, I mean, you were two of the most influential people in the town of Vail. Rod came here to start a real estate company. That was originally why he came here?
No, he came here as a skier to teach skiing year one. And the real estate evolved because they looked around. There were so few people
it was a
here
necessity.
to do anything.
Yep.
And Vail Resort Company said, "Well, can you sell the property? We've got to have people building houses here." And he said, sure. He got his license. At the same time, he was teaching skiing.
Yeah.
And then after a couple of years, it got to be a bigger business.
Yeah.
And he he resigned from the ski school and he started his own business, Slifer and Company then.
Right. And which has now grown to a huge mega house of real estate. And you know, the remarkable thing, again, for those of you watching, small towns really breed themselves to opportunity if you're willing to do the work, because a lot of times you'll come in, just like you guys did, where you see a need that hasn't been met yet. And so you can rise to that occasion and say, wow, all of this is just orange and brown, gross. I need to come in and bring some life to these homes, same way that he got his real estate. But you really did create this power couple. So my question really is, I feel like you've done such a good job. I call it your soul style, which is this uniqueness of who we all are. So you're different than I am. But you've really found your soul style to present into the world. Do you have a manifesto or a motto that you live by that you feel like kind of carries you through?
Gosh, that is such a hard question. I have so many things at different parts of my life that have been guideposts.
Yeah.
Growing up, honesty and hard work was very much a guidepost in my childhood. And that certainly carried through the rest of my life. I discovered pretty young that I liked being sociable. I'm very gregarious. I feel better at a party than I feel at home watching television.
And you're very good at entertaining as well.
Well, I love to entertain, and that's not what everybody is comfortable doing.
Right.
And that's just my comfort zone. So I like people, and it was natural that I would be involved with people. And to be in a small community, I moved here in 1983, and the center of the valley was truly Vail.
Right.
Arrowhead was being built. Beaver Creek had been a flop, partially because of the economy, and there was not much of anything further west except people that had lived here a long time on ranches and farms. And so it was such a tight-knit, small area, and it was easy to see what needed to be done and to pitch in and do it, whatever it was, whether it was in a nonprofit or whether it was in a committee for the town. I remember when the town decided, and the community, the Vail Valley Foundation, decided they wanted to have the World Championships to help put Vail on the international ski map. And I was immediately asked, I'd been here a year, to be on the committee to try and figure out how are we going to do that.
But that's the that's how you present yourself to the world, where you hop in where you're needed. And I love that about you, because I think oftentimes people in your position almost segregate themselves on a higher level. But you, despite yours, and I will say this about Rod too, but despite your success, you guys are at such a personable level. As you said before, Rod treats everyone the same. And I feel that way about you, where it's, I mean, we're sitting on a couch together now, and it just, you had no reluctancy to come do this with me. And that's how you've done your life. In terms of seeing,
I had a second thought after I said yes. I thought, I don't have time to do this.
I know. As soon as someone says it's video, or as I say it's video, and by the way, it's going to take some time, everyone's like, wait. But I'm so grateful you did, because the world can learn so much from you. So quickly tell me, what do you feel like are your 3 greatest successes or gifts in the world?
Gosh, family first, friends, and then contributing to this community, which keeps blossoming and growing.
I love that. And that's really your legacy. I mean, I feel like you're going to have a lot of legacy. You adopted a daughter.
Yes.
And she's now, where is she?
She is 29, pregnant for the first time, our only child, so our first grandchild.
Yay.
And that is really exciting. What a great thing to look forward to.
I know. That's one of the best phases of
And
of
it's
life.
interesting how many children who grow up in this community aspire to come back.
Because they go out in the world and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to get back to that happy valley.
They do,
Yeah.
and they love it. And the first thing she did after graduating from college was to move to New York City because she had a great group of friends that were doing it. And within less than a year, she said, you know, I'm going to get back to Vail eventually. It took her more than a year.
Of course.
She lived in several places as a business consultant, but always with the goal of coming back to the mountains and coming back to the Vail Valley.
Yeah.
And incredibly to me, she married a man who grew up here also.
Wow.
Who had the same goal, lived in Chicago, then moved to Jackson Hole, and then eventually, when they decided that they were an item, they both decided to move back here.
I love it. I love it. That's so fantastic.
It's really
I
good.
think it's funny. Most kids want to get out of here as soon as possible. As soon as they graduate, they're hitting big cities, going international, doing whatever they can. And then the epiphany arises that this is actually a pretty special place to be. And I think that's true. You know, I think as the world is getting bigger on so many levels, it's also getting smaller. And I think people are craving smaller communities, smaller connections. Smaller homes, even. Well, we could talk about that for a long time, but you know, you've been. I feel like you've been an inspiration to so many women in your life. There's been so many people, whether you've been employing them, whether you're just going out in the community and they see how you're moving through life. Who were the women or woman in particular that really inspired you to become who you are today?
Wow. Well, I had several favorite role models. My mother was, in that she was a working mom from the time I was in about the 9th grade forward. And so that seemed normal to me. Mm-hmm. And unlike all my friends with whom I grew up, their moms were all at home, and most of them did not pursue careers after college or after marriage. But that seemed a normal thing, and our household worked well. We didn't suffer because she was not in the home 24/7. So that was a natural for me. And then I had a boss in Washington, D.C. who was very powerful. She was one of the key advisors to President Carter. She got a big appointment in his administration, and I watched how she operated. She was very feminine. She actually looked like a brunette version of you. And she always wore dresses, never was cowed into looking like an IBM executive.
Right.
But she was tough. And I learned and observed and in some ways emulated that you can be both.
Yeah.
You don't have to adopt men's characteristics to be a leader, but you don't have to be meek and mild to get your own way, which is the way I was brought up, was that women use their wily ways to get what they wanted.
Yes.
I don't have time for that. I don't have the personality or the energy for that. So those two people were very important to me. And then once I moved here, before I even married Rodney, he had been very good friends for many years with President and Betty Ford. When they came here, long before he was a national figure and eventually president. And so when I met her, they were already in retirement. I was working for the man that had defeated President Ford, and he wasn't too sure he thought I was going to be such a nice friend for him or for Rod. But Betty Ford embraced me from day one. And I grew to admire her more than anybody I've ever known. Think about what she did. She had an addiction problem, And she went public with it and helped millions and millions and millions of people realize it's not a moral defect.
Right.
It's an illness, and it can be treated,
Right.
and you can have a terrific life.
Right. It's a hiccup.
She had cancer, breast cancer. She talked about it. She used the word breast and she used the word cancer.
Right.
And in those days, in the 70s,
You didn't talk about that stuff.
people never mentioned those two words,
Right.
much less together.
Right.
And so she helped us all face those big issues. And at the same time, she influenced her husband, but very gently, not like many previous and subsequent first
Right.
ladies have done. And he allowed her to do what she thought was right, but they had a particularly wonderful relationships. So she was a leader for the ERA, and he was against it while he was in the White House.
Talk about allowing each other to have space, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They just allowed each other to be who they were.
Yeah.
And
I think, I think when I think about who she was, I didn't know her obviously nearly. I mean, you knew her. I just know of her. But when I look at female leadership, and it's what you were talking about before, I feel like women are really here to heal the world in a lot of ways because we can flex more of the compassion and love side of things, and still have a strong voice, but not a voice that shuts people down, but opens people up. And I feel like she did that so beautifully well.
She did.
With those examples that you just said. Yeah, amazing, amazing. I'm so grateful that you got to know, I know you are, but got to know them on such a personal level.
Yeah.
And they were a huge part of the Vail community. Now we have the Betty Ford Gardens, which started long, long ago, but a gathering place. And they were
the amphitheater.
the amphitheater. We have a lot of
But-
their influence.
But their example of giving to the community was far more than lending their name. They walked around the
They were
village,
people. They were
spoke
human.
to anybody,
Yeah.
everybody.
They were out on the parade, they were
Yeah.
human beings walking the streets as regular people, which I'm sure felt good to them as well
Well, true.
in that spotlight. That's hard to do.
They love being here. There's
Right.
no question
Right.
about that. But they were so natural and so warm, and that was a great example for everybody. You don't have to be self-important just because you've made a lot of difference in the world.
What a huge statement that is, self-importance. It's so overrated, quite honestly. It's like getting back to the human level, What do you feel like the world needs more of?
Love. Is there any
That's
doubt?
my answer. I know. Is there any
There's
doubt?
no doubt.
I know.
But also, I think the world needs to stop taking such fierce positions on anything and everything. Our world in American politics is a terrible example of people taking fierce positions, but we're not alone. It's happening all over the world.
Yeah, it really is.
And we somehow need to back off of that and realize we can get along no matter what you think about the color red. That doesn't mean you have to hold it against me.
Right.
And it's
Right.
from as fundamental, simple issues as preferences as it is to really serious issues in life. We've got to allow everyone to think for themselves and share their ideas and hopefully come to an agreement that works for much more than a simple majority, a great majority.
No question. You touched on love. The world needs love. And I truly believe that we're operating in such a place of fear right now, which is where that fierce conversation really stems from. It's fear-based. And if we can switch the fear into a space of love, it opens up possibility. Fierce and fear are just this, blockage, and love really opens up possibility and compassion and being able to come together. We are all human and we're all in this together. So we need to agree that red is a good color no matter if you like it or not. It's good in certain circumstances. What brings you happiness?
entertaining friends,
I know.
family.
If you ever get invited to go anywhere Beth is entertaining, go. Can you imagine just the buffet layout? I'm sure is spectacular.
Well, no, I do. I just like people, and I like people when we're in our happy place.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I love being in these mountains, and on a blue sky day, skiing or being here in the summer on a blue sky day is the best.
It is.
And then the second best is being at the ocean on a blue sky day.
Yeah.
It's all about light and bright to me.
Yeah. And grounding with Mother Earth. I love being outside.
There you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you are.
What does badass and beautiful mean to you?
Say that again.
So I use the words badass and beautiful collectively a lot in my coaching, in my business. And for me, the reason that I like the duality of those, and you've already actually touched on it before, where in order to be a strong leader, I believe you have to have both the male, you talked about male leadership and that kind of go get 'em, that get stuff done, the task oriented stuff. We have to have that in order to get where we need to go. But then couple that with the beautiful, that's the soft grace. And I actually am sure you have a lot of your designs in the mountains that are badass and beautiful because it's that harsh material or harder material that's maybe metal or the strong wood with the soft fabrics, you know, so that's kind of what the badass and beautiful is.
Well, I'm also thinking about it in personalities.
Right. So tell me what it means.
And I really think you just described it. It's having the strength of your conviction, but the grace to do it appropriately and gently when gentle works, and be stronger when strength is necessary.
Yeah.
I think the generation of our daughter, who's almost 30, gets that more than my generation did. Now, I was a very old mother, so I really skipped a generation before we had Audie, but they seem to be more in tune to that, less hung up on role models of feminine or masculine or aggressive or not aggressive.
Right.
They just seem to blend those things. I really enjoy her friends from college and from business school, watching them
Witnessing more
work
of that.
through their career and through their relationships and having badass beauty.
Yeah, yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, I love it. It's permission. And then finish this statement. I want to be.
Well, I want to be alive for at least another 30 years.
Let's push that. Let's push that. Maybe 40 or 50.
Well, I don't think I can do that. I'm already pretty close to the 8th decade. But I just want to see what the next chapter is. I'm really phasing into another one, and so many things have converged at the same time. And not the least of which, I'll be a grandparent, but I don't think I'm going to be the ideal grandparent that stays home and does a lot of babysitting. But you never know.
You never know.
You never know. That may be my next chapter.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
As you can see, Beth Slifer is more than just an amazing, successful woman. She is such a gift to this world and a beautiful light. So to learn more, you can check out the links below. Thanks for watching.